Yo, what's up, IceRocks? Obviously, we're good friends here, and there might be people
Yes.
who have seen you on the channel, right? And it's been like a minute, so the backstory would have been, oh, I remember this guy from beat making videos, and then some of like music releases and working with DXA. So outside of DXA, we'll leave it off on that chapter and pretend like that was the last page
Okay.
somebody else was on. So a question would be like some resume highlights that you have. And I know that's a tough question to just be like, oh, off the top of my head, I'm going to forget people. So I'm going to list some that I found on Discogs when I was looking. And then you could
Okay.
respond to it and add in like, oh, you missed this person. So some of the people that came up, Mayhem, Loren might be somebody who, comes to mind when your name comes up. XP the Marksman, Spit
For
Gems.
sure.
I saw Shabam Sadiq on there. Benny the Butcher, Rick Hyde, El Camino, G4
Yep.
Jag, J Royale, Ito, Flea Lord, and Heem. Anyone
Yeah.
noticeable I missed? I know, I thought I got a pretty decent list
I
there.
mean, yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, you covered most of the people. I mean, there's probably someone I'm missing, obviously, but for the most part, yeah, you covered pretty much.
All right, I would say that's a pretty thorough list. Like that's a nice little resume you got working there. Hope if we do this again in the future, like, oh look who else is added to that. So
Yep. Yep. Yep.
nice job, sir.
Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Word. Okay, so that's like I said, like some of like the timeline filler. So, um, we'll rewind it a little bit. So, what influenced you to get into production? Like, what made you want to make beats?
I've always been really into music and like even when I was younger, I would listen to like hip hop records and just be like, "Oh, what's that? Where'd this come from?" You know what I mean? Just like I didn't really understand how beats were made, but I could hear the shit, and I'm like, "This sounds dope," or "It sounds familiar." You know what I mean? And then once I started like record shopping, digging for records, and finding like samples and things like that, then I started realizing like, "Oh, okay, there's like a whole world behind this." And then so that was kind of like the what got me started in like the music stuff and kind of like what got me interested in it.
Okay, so let me
But
let
it's,
me back one thing into your answer. So it started with like going to a record store. Like, why would you be in that record store?
well, so it basically it was like it was interest, curiosity of like how music was made. Like, so I knew about drum machines kind of, but I didn't know how to make a beat on one. You know what I'm saying? So like I did know about how DJs would break records down and be like, okay, play this, play that, and they like beat juggle and like make music from that. And then I learned about like pause tapes and all that stuff because it was that was a little before my time. Um, but like basically searching for the music that made the beats was like interesting to me. So I would like listen to records even when I was like 13, 14, whatever, and like be like, oh, that's a James Brown like, thing, or that's a this, and just kind of getting like acquainted with that. And then through hip hop records, that's how I kind of discovered more music, you know what I mean?
Okay.
And and then once I got with people like yourself and other people like that were making music or even already, I kind of like gravitated more towards it. You know what I mean? And
Uh,
then it got to a point where I was making beats, and then you guys were like, "Yo, you're like pretty good at this. Like, you should really try to do this." And
uh,
I'm like, "Yeah, I guess I am pretty good at this. Like, maybe I should focus on this." And like you even said, like even before I was making beats, when we were like freestyling and stuff, I would go to Fat Beats and buy the records for us to rap over because I just like I like like to pick music out. So like we would even there was a couple of those like the Alchemist records and like all that stuff, but there was even ones before that that we were like listening to and kind of playing with and like doing like little songs over just because we liked the instrumentals, but we would pick them out. So that was before we started making the music, but that was kind of like all in the same vein, kind of like finding things that you kind of gelled with. You know what I mean?
all right, get you. I think so. If I recall correctly, when I first met you, you had a set of turntables. So like that kind of like
Yes.
pieces together
Yeah.
in my head. Like, yeah, obviously if you had the
Yeah.
turntables, you had records, and I think it was like before even Techniques 1200s, right?
Dude, I had a pair when we met. I had a pair of this is gonna date me, but I had a pair of Newmark belt drive turntables that came in a DJ in a box, like basically like a package deal that you get at like, I mean, where was it? Sam Ash or one of the places like that. And it was like, I think it was $300, and you got two turntables and a mixer. The like, it was called like a Blue Dog mixer or some garbage little mixer. And I learned on the belt drive turntables, like just playing with that, and yeah, no fucking direct drive, like none of that. It was just belt drives, and I wasn't even really DJing. I was kind of more just playing music, but that's kind of how I got into it. Yeah,
Okay,
but
got
yeah,
you.
I had those.
I think I remember those new marks like they were the blue joints.
Yeah, they were blue. Uh huh.
I,
Yep.
I feel like I remember seeing them in magazines and stuff too. Like they'd be in the back where there'd
Yep.
be the ads and like you said, like the DJ starter pack.
It was
Um,
basically the thing, like it was the pack that they tried to like draw you in with. They'd be like, "Yo, it's only $300." You know what I mean? Like these other turntables are mad money. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it's like my first turntable, setup. So that's what I had, and I just like, I was buying like some hip hop records and some stuff like that, but I was also trying to dig for the funk, the soul, the jazz, like all that stuff. Is kind of how I got into it.
Got you, got you. All right. So coming from the turntables, looking for records, starting with like hip hop and finding other stuff, like what was the first iteration of what you used to make beats?
So I think the first setup I had before I even was using like a program is I had Brian, the homie Brian. He lent me his MPC 2000 XL,
The funny
and
colored
I was
one.
like, "What's up?" It was like yeah,
The funny color.
the funky color. It was like orange and red and yellow. It was like weird colors with like the weird like graphic on it. And I think like he got that one because he got a floor model and it was a weird color, so he got a discount on it. So whatever. So he just went for that, but it played the same. It was the same, machine. So I was playing with that, and then he eventually, I forget, someone wanted to buy it. I don't know if it was someone that I knew or I can't remember, but someone wanted to buy it. So he ended up selling it. So I'm like, okay, now I don't have anything to make beats on. So I started making beats on Reason, like the second version of Reason. I think it was Reason 2. And he gave me the program. I used that shit. And then we got this program and we started working with that. And then after that, I was like, oh, I want to get back onto a drum machine. And then I think that's when I got the MPC 2000, which is right there. And then after that, I got into the SP 1200, and I was using that for a while,
Got you.
like
Is
that and
is
the
is that one
950.
there the original one?
The SP?
No, no, no. The 2000.
I think that's the original 2000. I think,
It looks
yeah,
too
I think
clean to
that's the
me.
one. Well, then maybe that's because I've had more than one,
Uh-huh.
so I can't remember if that's the original one or not. I can't remember,
It could have been right.
but
Like maybe it went to HB after you, and
it's
then you got it back
possible.
from him.
Yeah, I forget. I
Oh,
forget.
okay.
But that I love that machine. I made a lot of like our whole first album was made on that machine. DXA, the Don't Expect Answers album was all made on that. Um, I
Any
mean, or at
reason
least all the
joints?
ones I did.
Did any reason
Well,
joints make the
actually,
cuts?
they were kind of a combination, but actually, it's probably more like 75% that and some Reason joints.
All right.
But yeah, so Reason was big with that for a while. I was using that for a little while. But some of those beats I remade on the drum machine just because I wanted, you know what I mean, like, or vice versa. But yeah, Reason was a big part of it in the beginning, just because it was like I got it for free, so it was like I can just And then I think I bought a version of it at one point because I was like I wanted like an expansion pack or some other thing or whatever. Um, but yeah, at the time it all seemed like a lot of money, you know what I mean, just to do it. But I did it, and then we eventually got the whole studio popping, and that was that was a big leap. But that was a little bit later.
Okay, so it went from the 2000 to a 1200.
Yeah, SP 1200 and S 950.
All
So
right. So
that was
what
like
made
the
you
combo.
choose? What made you choose the 1200? Because it sounds like like if you're like on paper, that's going backwards.
So the SP 1200 was the reason that I wanted that was, I mean, probably like Pete Rock, Lord Finesse, Buck Wild, Easy Moby, listening to those beats and being like, dude, what is that? You know what I mean? Like, what is that? Like, what's that sound? Like, nothing sounds like that SP 1200. So, like, I don't know. I kind of like went down that rabbit hole and kind of got obsessed with the like audio behind it and was like, okay, well, what was being made? How is this being made? What machines were being used? And then I already had the record, so I was like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, let me just put these two together, and I was starting to get like a sound that I really liked. And then, yeah, and then I kind of just rolled with that for a while, I guess.
So
And we were all kind of like in that realm of like we were having beat battles. You remember all the beat battles and everything, and like that was like a just a real fun time just to be like creating music. You know what I mean?
and
So
if I recall correctly, you and me were at Beat Society one time. Does that sound right?
yes,
And
yes,
the Beat Miners were on stage, and Evil D had the 1200. I think like that might have
that's
been
right.
that might have
Yes,
been one of
that's
the first
right.
times I heard it in person. I was like, yo, that sounds fucking crazy. Like
That
people
I
had
do
other
remember.
shit.
Yeah.
People had other shit, but just hearing that in person, I was like, what the fuck?
What was that? 05? 06?
Maybe a little earlier. I would say like maybe
Maybe a little earlier.
oh 03, oh
Because
four.
I bought my 1200 in 06.
Okay. I would say then that's probably around the time because that's when the SP 1200 forum started was '06. So I felt like maybe it was '05 because around that
Yeah,
time we
maybe
were
as
like
well.
collecting a lot of, or like not collecting, we were starting to gather together pieces around that
Yeah,
time. And I feel like
yeah,
to place it like the XL with Brian was like '03 earlier.
yeah. I think that was 03. When I first started like toying around with it and like because I wasn't really making beats earlier than that, and like I was always into music, and we were drawing and doing all that shit and like whatever, and but I wasn't like I was always into music. I just never like got the urge to make it until like a little bit later.
Word. I'm just making sure
So,
the screen's still recording. Sorry, I'm gonna edit
but
that
yeah,
one.
that was pretty much. I think it was around that time, and then we dove headfirst into the SP 1200 and went down that rabbit hole, and that was a lot of fun. But like, dude, they still have discs like everywhere. Like, there's discs over there, there's discs over here. It's like they're just like everywhere. So,
So, not to like beat a dead horse to the subject, but what did you feel was like elevated from going from the 2000 to the SP, or was it just like another box to check, or like did it help you at all? Like something like that is what I'm getting at.
um, like learning on the SP or
I
what?
mean more like evolving, right? Because I guess learning's part of it, right? But learning could be as simple as put a sample in, program it, export it, mix it, right? Like getting better at what you do, or
I think
add into whatever you bring to the table, kind of shit.
I think that you're saying the transition like to the SP.
Yeah, yeah. Like, was there something in particular about it that like helped you evolve, or it was just like another another A to B
I
kind of thing?
think I think the limitations of it is something that helped me think about music differently. Cause like on an MPC you can like record like a half a record or some shit. You know what I mean? If you need to, like, there's like when you're going backwards, you kind of start thinking about things differently. Like, okay, I only have 10 seconds of sample time. Like, what am I gonna do? Like, or like, okay, these drums, like if I record them in faster, then I can slow them down in the thing and like and get like a little more time out of the sample time or whatever. There's like little tricks that people who use the machine know how to do, and it's like kind of like it's commonplace now, but at the time, like there wasn't a place you could go find all that information. So like we were kind of like learning it on the fly,
Yeah,
and then
teaching each
like
other and shit.
and teaching each other exactly, and then we would find like an interview where someone would say something about it, and you're like, oh, like,
Yeah,
but
you
you
catch
know what
like
I'm
one
saying,
word
like,
and you're like, oh, that, etc.
yeah. Or and then and then we were even crazier where we were watching sitcoms to find like people like rocking machines. Like remember like Martin, there was like that one scene where they got the fucking 3000 I think in it or something, or like there's just like different things where you see all that stuff and you got to get like obsessed with like the whole culture behind it. Um
So yeah,
but
somebody had a 60, right? I think I remember Blossom's dad
yeah,
had a SP or he had the
yeah, it was one
60.
yeah,
Blossom-
100%. One of those I forget what it was. It was someone, yeah, someone. But yeah, it was like we were just kind of into that shit, and then like transitioning to that, you're going backwards. So it's like it's just kind of different. It's a little more rudimentary, but I like it. I don't know. It was just something about the machine that had a great sound to it. It 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 just felt raw and like it just it's like back to basics basically when you're working on it. You know what I mean? It's like it's not a lot of bells and whistles, but it's like just raw. Sound and it sounds great.
Got you. I feel like I remember, and it's sticking with me of like you always being deliberate about how you chopped up stuff, right? Like it could be easy to be like, oh, I'm gonna take 2 bars and then put a loop of drums over it, and I feel like that would be like the opposite of how you worked, right? Like I'm
Yes, yes.
deliberately gonna do something. I'm gonna hear something, and I'm gonna like put it together the way I had it in my head. That's something I always like caught that you were doing.
Yeah, and it's kind of like it's kind of also was you didn't really have you couldn't really loop it, so it's like you had to figure out where like okay, if I take this one note and then the second note and I like play this over, it will fill in the space, and then I can put this third one in, and like it's just not necessarily on a grid, you know what I mean? And you're trying to figure it out. But I kind of like that because it just I don't know it took things to a different level, even though I was technically going backwards. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, no, I get you. So what was after the 1200 and the 950?
After the 1200 and the 950, I kind of just started making beats in Pro Tools for a little while. For a while, but I still use everything, just not the way I used to use it. You know what I mean?
What do you
So
mean by that? What do you
I
mean by
still
that?
process drums through the SP, but I don't necessarily sequence on it. So like I'll process drums into it and then I'll put them in the computer and then I'll sometimes sequence in the computer, you know what I mean? And do all my shit in like Pro Tools. And now I've been using Luna also, um but I've just been doing it like that for a while. It's just like was easier and quicker to do. Um but I mean, yeah, I've processed so much drums through that drum machine that like I have a lot of the stuff already on the computer now. So like pulling stuff up is easy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I want to use those drums. Like they're already there. You know what I mean?
I got you.
So it just made the easy use like a little easier. And like once you once you're kind of stepping away from the hobbyist and you're trying to get more into like getting work done and doing it for a job, you kind of have to try to maximize your workflow a little bit. And then like having all these discs and all this other stuff, it just like I don't know, it just kind of got a little tedious to get to work. But
I
I
get you.
still
And
I
then you
still
don't have to
love
deal
that
with
stuff.
the day where you're like, oh, where's that beat? The disc is fucked or whatever. Like
And
that. That
that's
yeah,
happened before where I pull up a record and I'm like, ooh, and it's like corrupted or some shit. I'm like, oh fuck. You
got you.
know?
Yeah, yeah. So I guess like my next question you kind of answered, but maybe I'll say it more directly in case there's a part of it that you didn't encompass to how you said that. So you kind of explained like what the 2000 gave to your process, and then kind of what the 1200 and the 950 added to that. Is there something other than the ease that kind of like comes into play with Pro Tools being the next, or we'll just call it like a DAW being the next evolution of it?
Um, I don't know. Like I'm weird. I kind of like when everybody was throwing away their drum machines and shit. We were using drum machines, and then when we stopped using our drum machines, like now then people went back and started using like 303s and shit. It's just like a weird cycle. But I always felt like I felt like I was stepping away from the thing when other people were trying to go towards it. You know what I mean? Which is like not like because I was ahead of my time or anything, because obviously I wasn't. SP's been around for, since I was like young.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, my it's like one of those things where I was like kind of like already like, oh yeah, I did this a lot already. You know what I mean? Like, let me go towards something that's going to make my workflow a little bit easier, and that's kind of why I went with that. But I still go back and use, like, I use that sometimes. I use the SP sometimes. You know what I mean? I still incorporate them in, but like not in my everyday process. You know what I mean? Because I
Gotcha.
even had a I even had a I even had a I don't know if you remember this when I made a couple beats on the ASR and brought them up to your house and bounced them out through, in the Bronx when I brought that shit on the fucking subway.
The
You remember when I
ASR
used
is
to?
before the 1200, right?
I think it was either right before or I had it and then I got that and I wanted to play with it with I think I wanted to use it with the 1200, but then it just never. I did like a couple joints on it, but that was it. But
That thing was
I
difficult to figure out. I remember you got
yeah,
that off the dude who I bought my 3000 from, because the day we were there, he
yes.
was like, "Yo, I also got an ASR 10."
Yes, yes,
And
yes. And
coming
then I think we
from
went back like the next week or
yeah,
whatever. And
and coming from like the MP state of mind, it was difficult to like
yes.
to figure that out. It took me a while to like learn the EPS, like just having to think a different way. And I remember like when we went to see that dude too, and he was like, when I was buying the 3000 off him, he's like, nah, but the 60 is that shit. And like that stuck
Yeah.
with me a little bit. I was like, oh, I gotta get a 60. But it's all kind of like the same like drug addict urge where you're like, oh, gotta have
Oh
all
yeah,
these
for
shits.
sure. It's like, yeah, but this one,
Yeah,
bro,
this
this
one.
one's the one. And
Yeah.
then you're like, yeah, it's like it's just chasing that. It's the same thing. It's just like a high. Like, okay, I want to get this. It's the same thing with like how we used to North Faces and this, that, and the other thing. It's like, oh, yeah, but have you seen the hell? Have you seen the this? Have you seen? It's like, come on, oh, but you haven't seen that Steve Tech. You know what I mean? It's the same kind of like mission where you're like you're like trying to chase that.
Yeah, I
But
feel you. And if you had it and somebody mentioned it, you'd be like, nah, that ain't shit. Like I've been had that. Even though if you didn't had it, you would have been like,
yeah,
no, I need that. So I get that. One thing that I had in mind, kind of like when I was asking the question, was I know another thing that you do that I feel like is maybe more common now, or like I don't want to say exposed, that other producers do it or made bigger from other producers do it, is having like live musicians come in and play. And I remember that from like back when we were still on these machines and stuff. And to
yeah,
me, like
yeah.
doing that with the DAW is an advantage, because you're like, I have all my ingredients right here. Not I gotta like record this, put it into the thing, or like have somebody play over a tracked out beat or whatever, like
Yeah. That was definitely, yeah. I've always liked to incorporate that, and in the DAW, I mean, it makes it a lot easier because what I used to do is I used to record it into the computer and then I'd fly the shit into the 950 and I'd have to chop it again, kind of, and then place it on the beat. And then it would all end up back in the DAW anyway. So I was like, this is kind of backwards, but it was what we were using at the time to get the job done or whatever. But I always liked incorporating the live instruments. I don't know, trying to think of like where that might have come from, but I guess it was because I was around people who were playing music, John and HB and like Destroy Babylon guys and who else was around? Exit Verona, like, HB's homies and shit. So it was like there's a lot of people around and we were kind of like we ended up building the studio, all of us, and it it birthed like people being around that played instruments and stuff like that. So and I always like loved horns and the way, a horn section sounds and whatever, just from like making 90s beats, 90s style beats or whatever you want to call it. I always like the horns and stuff like that. So it kind of like all kind of fell into place that way, I feel like.
got you. Yeah, no, I like that was just one thing that kind of like popped in my head thinking about it. And what I feel like you're getting at too is like music's a social thing, right? Like you can't live in a box and make music and
Yeah,
do
I mean
anything
you
with it.
can, but
But
it's
you need
but
somebody to hear it at
it's
least.
it's less enjoyable if you're just like sitting there by yourself doing it with no interaction. You know what I mean?
Mm.
I feel like it's kind of like music is kind of like it's like the lungs, you know what I mean? It's like breathing. It's like it's not it doesn't sit still, right? So you kind of like got to work with it, you know what I mean?
Gotcha,
I don't
gotcha.
know. And you got to feed it, you know what I mean? You got to feed that like that creative energy, I feel like, and with other people trying to be a part of it, I think that kind of helps it, you know, and like and sometimes, you know, you have a beat and you really like it and someone's like, "Oh," and then they play something and it just like takes it to a different level, you know what I mean? And it kind of like when we did progression and we got, you know, the horns on that, like it just took it to a different step and like made it like more of a final thing, you know?
Yes, yeah, for sure. That definitely like I don't know, solidify icing on the cake, however
Yeah,
you
I
wanna
just
put
think
it.
it's like I don't know if it's necessarily like whatever you want to call it, but it just adds another layer that like you didn't realize you necessarily needed it, but you needed something, and then you put something, and then you happen to get what you need. You know what I mean? Or what you want, and it's like okay, that's awesome. Like obviously, sometimes it takes a little work to make it like perfect or how perfect enough for you to want to release it, but I don't know. There's just something about like that like putting people in a room together and seeing what happens kind of thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Which
for
I
sure.
always kind of like that with like, you know, I feel like I always made better music with people that I had a good rapport with.
Okay.
You
Yeah,
know what
no,
I mean?
I feel that goes back to the social thing, right? So it's like
Yeah.
that synergy of multiple people's creativity and collaborating on something, etc.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, so I feel like this we might have answered the question, but I'm gonna get like a little bit further or ask for clarification on it too. So what does your process look like today? Like you walk into the studio, um, blank slate, and your goal is to end the day with a beat, right? Or more than one, right? And we'll just focus on one. So like what's the process look like? And then I'll ask you some questions along the way
Well,
with it.
nowadays with AI, I just tell it to make the beat for me, and I can just sit here and fucking twiddle my thumbs. You know?
Gotcha.
Nah, I'm just joking. Um, I basically have the same process that I've kind of always
Mm.
had, but it's not it doesn't always necessarily come to the same result, but I try to come into the studio usually with like a stack of records or
That
you know what I mean
like
some music some
shit that you just dug, or like you went to the record store,
um
like
I
ordered
guess
online, some.
that's the only part which varies. Like sometimes I have like right now I have a stack of records right here from when from tour. So like I got back from tour and I was like, okay, I have a stack of records I need to go through. And then like other times when I go away, I always go to a record store whenever I go like to a new place.
Mm.
So I always have like stuff that I need to go through. But then I also sometimes, if you can see, I have records back here, and like there's
Small portion of the records you have.
this is like this isn't even half the records I own. But yeah, there's like I sometimes can just dig through my own records in my own in the apartment in the studio. I have some at my mom's house. I have some in the storage unit. You know, they're scattered amongst my life. And I sometimes just, you know, I just go dig through them or like a lot of times I noticed this when I was younger. I would go record shopping and I'd be like, oh, that's dope. That's dope. I put stuff aside. And records were cheaper back then too. So I would just buy stuff, even sometimes like on a whim, you know what I mean? Like whatever. It's like, it's $3. Now those records are $30,
Mhm.
so it's a little different. But like I used to just buy shit, and I'd be like, okay, and I, you know, it's like playing Russian roulette. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's fire, that sucks. You know what I mean? And whatever. Um, so there was a time when I was buying a lot of records that I don't even think I went through a lot of them. So I've gone back through my records and been like, holy shit, I don't think I've ever listened to this.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Most of it by now, I think I've gotten through, with the exception of the new piles. But yeah, that happens sometimes where I'm just like, damn, I like go back and I'll listen to it. And I'm like, oh, I bought this for this exact point, and I never did anything with this. You know what I mean?
I get you.
So
So
that's
it's like walk in the studio, have records, you put them on the turntable, and the turntable's hooked up to the DAW.
yeah. So I record. Well, I record. Yeah, I mean it's through a cable. It's not like a direct, but yeah, I record it. I record whatever into the DAW, and then I just make beats like in the DAW normally now. With the
Okay.
exception of, like I said, if I want to pull some drums off of the drum machines or I want to sometimes I'll even just This has actually happened a couple times where I've made the beat in the DAW, and I don't like the way the drums sound or swing, and then I'll remake the drums in the SP 1200, and then I'll record it into back into the computer, and then re-loop it in there, so it's like the way I like it to sound. You know what I mean? I've
Gotcha.
done that a few times.
One
But
question
yeah.
I like that I've heard other people ask is like, do you start with the drums first? Do you start with the samples? Is there like a hundred
Um,
percent method?
it doesn't really for me. It doesn't. I used to. I mean, something. A lot of times I start with the music, but so okay. What I'll normally do is I'll normally find a like a portion that I like of something. Like let's say I just loop something up, right? And I'll like the song already, and there'll be like different parts that I like, but I haven't decided like where I'm gonna take it really. But I'll take like the main part, and I'll get a loop going and see how I like it, and then I'll be like, okay, and then I start rearranging that loop sometimes, and then after that, then I go back sometimes and even do it further, where I'm like, okay, I'm taking this part out and this that, so then I start like taking stuff away, and then sometimes I'll be like, okay, I like that, and then I'll have like I'll just put a drum break on it, and I'll be like, okay, I like that, but then I'm like, okay, the drums are they're too rigid, or I want to move this and make it a little more intricate. And sometimes I'll make the whole beat like that, and I'll put the whole drums, and then I'm like, you know what, I don't like these, and I'll scrap those drums and take a whole new set of drums. But it really depends, you know what I mean?
Was it the same way with the drum machine, like where you're like, I'm gonna chop this sample up and then add things
Yeah,
on, or
I kind of worked the same exact way that I did on that. Although with the SB 1200, if you were trying to do a beat with just the 10 seconds, a lot of the times I would start with like a very regular drum beat because when you're flying in the samples, you don't have any reference otherwise. You know what I mean? It's just like I don't like just using the metronome. So I would just do like a very like rigid, just like boom, 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 boom. You know what I mean? Something simple, and I would just like fly in the samples over that, and then I'd be like, okay, then I'd go back and remake the drums so they sound like the way I want them to sound, and then kind of touch up the music afterwards. But it really it I guess it depends. If I'm doing something that's like more chopped up, sometimes I have to start with like some type of drums. Um, but it kind of it depends on on what I'm making more so than a specific way of working. You know what I mean?
yep, yep, I got you. Like I said, I always hear
It's
people give
circumstantial. Circumstantial is like, you know.
got you. Yeah, I always like to hear how people approach that. And at the end of the day, like when the final output, it doesn't really like like
Right.
making the sausage or
If
whatever.
it's dope, it's dope. That's
Yeah,
the way I look at it. You know what I mean?
got you. All right, so I think I've gotten through a lot of these questions. So, is there anything that you feel is signature to your sound today as somebody who's like developed over the 20 years? Or is it like too hard to even put the microscope on yourself? You're like, that's the kind of thing somebody externally have to answer. But if like maybe somebody didn't know you and they're like what's signature to what you do?
I mean, you know, that's hard for me to answer.
I get you. It's very much like, tell me about yourself,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
makes,
I
what
mean,
puts the ice in ice rocks?
yeah. Like what makes you tick?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's. I mean, I guess if you asked everybody things, I feel like you would get probably three or four general answers.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know. Like I say, a lot of people tell me that my drums are sound specific, or like, or they can tell that it's a track I made by the drums. I've had people say that like the horns or like the way I use horns, people are able to tell that it's me. But I mean, I don't really know, like, because I make a lot of different kinds of stuff. It's not, you know, I make jazzy stuff. I make like hard like records. I make stuff like just different soulful stuff. So I try not to like pigeonhole myself. Like I try to go, cover the spectrum when it comes to sound. But
Mhm.
but I don't know. I guess certain people would probably say that I have some certain signatures.
I get you, and maybe that's the kind of thing if like somebody wanted an answer to that, like you'd have to listen to their music and kind of like
Yeah.
formulate whatever you see as the common threads. From an engineer standpoint, because I've mixed a lot of your music, I would say
Yes.
out of the people who bring me stuff, like the quality of the things you sample always is good, right? Like it's like a good foundation. There's never a time like I feel like you have a good ear for what you put into the machine or put into the DAW, right? And
Appreciate
like
that. No, I
yes,
appreciate that.
yeah, and some people I'm just like
You're like, huh? Like what?
and even just like the quality of it, the I don't know the whole picture. Like I think you have a good ear for what you're even starting with, and that's like one of the
Right.
most like important things to do, right? Like you can't turn total shit into something good. Like maybe somebody could, right? But
Well, you can, but
like
you're not. The amount of times you're able to do that is not as abundant as if you start with something
mm,
good.
yeah, I get
You
you. And
know?
maybe the person who does that has a particular ear for finding something that sounds like shit that they're gonna make into their sound, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess that's a hard question to answer in real like uh
No, but
out in the
it's
clouds type of shit.
nah, nah, but I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. There's definitely it's a lot easier if you start with a good source. Then it's a lot easier to get to a better spot than if you start from a crappy source. And
Yeah,
you
and
know,
I think there's a certain like craftsmanship to it too, right? Like you wouldn't
yep.
try to build a house out of shitty wood, right? Like and
Or
maybe
or a bad foundation. You pour it
yeah,
with the concrete. You know.
yeah, you wouldn't get the cheapest concrete guy to pour the foundation for a house that you're about to go build everything on top of, right? And
Yeah.
that's more what I'm getting at. Then yeah, maybe somebody has a nice house where they I don't want to say cheaped out, but they didn't pay attention to everything along the way. Again, like I don't know, it's hard to take it in the other direction of like would it look like if somebody's doing it bad. At the end of the day, it's art, so it's like
Right.
that could be what makes somebody good. And there's things that we've heard in other producers, and you're like, the first time you hear it, you're like, I don't know about that. And then when you hear their style, you're like, oh, that's their style. I
But there's
respect it.
other stuff that you hear that when I first heard I'm a Radiohead, that way that beat sounds and that song sounds, it's like it's fucking dirty, right? And it's like it almost sounds like this is the mix, but it just sounds so dope that you're just like, you know what? Like it is what it is, right? Like it just, certain things are like that where, or what was that I forget. There was like an old Outsider song or whatever that like was really ill that sounded like shit, but it just sounds so good.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, it's like just the moment and how everything was captured just worked, and even if it's just like the qualities that but that doesn't always happen. If you did that on every song, most people wouldn't want to listen to it. The stuff, you know what I mean? That's where we're kind of getting with it.
Yeah, and yeah, I think we're on the same page. But all right, so the next question I have is, how do you get from being somebody who's good at making beats to somebody who like has a long list of respectable rappers to work with, right? Like, because there's probably a bunch of
I
people who are
mean,
sitting trying to make beats today, and they're like, oh, I can't get anybody to rap on my shit. Like I don't know. Like I feel like that's kind of a bridge that people have to learn in their career. Like if you were trying to explain that or help somebody who is new.
I would say a few things that will help you. I mean, obviously, networking is a great thing. Getting out there. I mean,
Yeah, what do you mean by
for
networking? Because like I don't know, like to me that like from work, I'm like, what
okay,
are you going
like
on
don't
LinkedIn?
nah, don't just send people like messages and DMs and be like, here, fucking check my beats out. You know what I mean? Like, you can do that, but I don't. I think you're gonna get a lot less response than if you just go out and interact with people. You know what I mean?
Mm,
So for me coming up, I mean, a for me a big thing was just to have a creative outlet was. Working on music with people that you fuck with, like so. You know what I mean? I had DXA, so every other people have other people, but I had DXA, so I made beats with my homies, and we made a lot of fucking music. Or wait, not a lot of music. We made a decent amount of music, and we did it all independent. And we kind of all helped each other, push each other to do music. And part of that was when we were doing stuff, we would meet other artists, and some of those other artists is who I ended up working with. You know what I mean? And like I would just say just do stuff. So even like we had a radio show at Baruch College, we had the Dirty Hour, and like I met Mayhem at the Dirty Hour. We had him on the show, you know what I mean? And
and
like
Shabam, who was on the list.
and Shabam, yeah, and Shabam, and I ended up DJing for Shabam for a little while, and then me and Mayhem started working together. But it's like it's just one of those things that like you have to be around to let to be around. You know what I mean? Like you can't just you're not gonna like not every producer unless you have the most fire beats and like you get a couple placements and you get you get a little luck behind it, and then like everybody wants you to just send them beats like that's cool. But I did a lot of this stuff in person. You know what I mean? And like to me that was kind of indispensable, and it kind of helps with the relationships. You know what I mean? Um, and then you know, like working with Benny, I drove all the way up to fucking Buffalo to work with him, and like I slept on the couch. You know what I mean? Like I fucking was in the. I was in. Shay brought me into the studio. I was there all night. You know what I mean? For 2 nights straight, we worked on a bunch of music. You know what I mean? Like that's where I met him. So if you look at it's a common theme. Like you do shit and then you meet people. So like we did a radio show. I met Shabam. I met Mayhem. We doing shows. We met other artists that I've worked with. You know what I mean? Like we had other friends that were making music, and we had met Too Deep, and he kind of came in the fold, and it's just kind of like doing stuff. And then we went overseas to do a show in Amsterdam, and we met XP, and then me and XP worked together. And it's like okay, but like for me, it's more of the relationships. Like I probably at one point I was chasing bigger artists and I wanted to work with these bigger artists, and like then I was like, you know what, let me just work with the people that already want to work with me, that I already fuck with, and let me just put more effort into that. And then I feel like that like really helped me out because there's something to like be said about that. I feel like and like you just already have the relationship, so like just do stuff, and when you have a good rapport and a good like working relationship, it just makes things kind of easy, and like we just would get things done. And like but I would say as far as like being an up and coming artist or producer, I think that's like an invaluable thing is find people that you like to work with and you believe in, and then the rest of it will start to fucking unfold. Because if you have an artist that believes in themselves and you believe in them and they believe in you, and you guys can really help each other out. You know what I mean? Because like there's gonna be people looking for verses, and they're gonna come for him, and then like they're gonna be like, oh, I need a let me get an IceRocks beat or whatever with them, or let me get a beat. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of work those relationships, and you end up working with more people that way too. Um, and then like just you end up getting features, or you meet somebody, and then they're like, yo, I really like your beats. Like, can we work on something? And it just kind of like it kind of falls into place. You know what I mean? And yeah, I just think that's like a good. I feel like it's just like find someone that you really want to work with and that wants to work with you, and like I guess that's it's hard at some points, you know what I mean? But like if you believe in each other's music, I feel like that's gonna help push everything forward.
Got you. Not. I think that's a good answer. My next question kind of is in the same vein, right? Like,
Uh-huh.
if you today could tell yourself, like your beginning self, something like, or give yourself tips, or like, oh, I wish I knew this when I started, or I wish I did this. Like, is there something that fits under that?
Um, yeah, I feel like I would tell myself to not overthink the shit too much. You know what I mean? I feel like at one point I was overthinking a lot of like the things I was doing, and like looking for like looking for like not an angle, but looking for like things to happen, and like I was placing thing like milestones for myself on other things that were like not necessarily necessary for me to like place them on.
Can you
And
can you give me an example of that?
like well, I don't want to I don't I, like I was saying like once this record comes out or once this happens, like this is gonna, you know what I mean?
Okay, okay.
And I don't think that that's a good way to like think about things, because you put so much pressure on something that like you sometimes forget to enjoy what actually comes from it. You know what I
Okay,
mean?
yeah, that kind of like that fills in the gaps of what I wasn't getting there.
Yeah. So I feel like when you place all that pressure, you're kind of like, oh well, that didn't happen, but like all this other shit that's ill happened, but you don't care because you're focused on this one thing. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like where I was getting at with it. But but overall, I feel like you just gotta fucking go for it. You know what I mean? It's really that's it. That's
Nice.
really it.
All right.
You
So
know,
summarize it. Today, Ice would go back to young Ice and be like, just go for it.
just go for it. Don't overthink it. Just fucking like just go for it. Because I feel like there was a lot of time when when I've had one foot in, one foot out. You know what I mean? Where I'm like, yeah, maybe I'm just gonna stick to this other stuff that I do. You know what I mean? And like, but I don't know. Music has always drawn me back in, and it's never it like it's one of those things where like even if I don't haven't put anything out, like just coming here and making music makes me feel good. So it's
Gotcha.
almost like a therapy just in and of itself. You know what I mean? But when you place milestones and things off of the creative process and you're like, oh, I need to do this or I need to do that, like it's always great to have a goal. And I always think that you should strive for new things. But I think when you put pressure and you don't get to those things, certain things, like you start to like kind of you kind of like undermine yourself in the after the fact, and I don't think that's a good thing. And I kind of like have completely washed that away from my brain. You know what I mean?
Gotcha.
Which has helped me out. I don't, so
All right. So then I guess the next evolution of this is like, what's next for you? Like, what's the game plan for the future?
um what's the game plan for the future? I have a bunch of records that are being mixed right now currently. A lot of stuff's coming out and like starting in the next few months. Um I don't necessarily want to name everything, but working on a bunch of projects. Working with Mayhem, working with XP. I'm working on a solo album. Um, Working with a bunch of other artists that you have heard me before with and not. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Got you. So one quick
But
follow up from
working
that.
on music, working on a bunch of music.
What do you like better about like doing your project versus being on somebody else's project or producing for somebody else? Like, is there something that's better? Is it like good to do a combination of them? Like,
I think it's all good. It's all good. I think you should do all of it. I mean, I don't think you should chase. I don't think your whole career should be chasing placements because it's very unfulfilling,
how
especially when you don't.
how's a placement unfulfilling?
Um, well, there sometimes you do a record for someone and like you're like excited about it, and then you have no idea like where it's gonna go. You have no idea if it's even gonna come out. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And when they do come out, sometimes you don't even know that they're on the record until the day before, or like sometimes the when it gets released. And then obviously I have an admin, so they'll go back and they'll make sure everything's straight. But like, I make sure like everything's cleared and whatever. But like, um, but it's just like it's not that fulfilling in that regard because you're always waiting for other people.
mm,
I feel like when in this, I mean, it's a great thing because it does great things for your career. And like, obviously, when I did the song with for Benny or I did the song with him and like all that stuff's didn't been added, adds to the thing, or Rick Hyde or whatever, any of these guys. That's all great, but I feel like it's more fulfilling to like sit and make albums and work on music and like collectively, you know what I mean, and get things done. So for me, I really like working on records with an artist and like kind of the collaborative effort of like I do the beats, they do the rhymes, and then like we kind of like mold it and figure out how it's gonna flow. Because the flow to me is a big thing with records. Like I like when things like kind of just they just flow. You know what I mean? They're not like one song and then another song and then there's like
mm.
no. You know what I mean? I kind of like that. I mean, I loved Prince Paul's, Prince Among Thieves. That was like an amazing album, and like the way that all flows together is incredible. And just things like that. You know what I mean? Like just hearing how people put things together. Um, always interests me. But yeah, I think like working with an artist and getting like really being able to like form a project and do that is like a great thing.
Okay,
Um,
so more of like cultivating the piece of music as opposed to contributing a beat and then doing
yeah,
nothing else.
yeah, yeah,
I get what you're saying about unfulfilling, right? Where you're like,
yeah.
my
Also,
contribution
like
was over the minute I hit send on an email, right? For
right,
the
or sometimes I mean, so, even sometimes like I've been in the studio for the making of the record and it's great and all that stuff's great, but then like sometimes the mix doesn't sound the way you want to, and then like I have to like hit up 17 people to try to get like let them like, let me get the mix fixed. You know what I mean? Or
because
it's just like a
you're not
lot.
cultivating it,
Right,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
And it's not even a control thing to me. It's just like I'm like, yo, this doesn't sound right. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like I like sound and music, so like I hear it and I'm like, ooh, yeah, that doesn't sound right. You know what I mean? It's just I don't know.
Yeah, no, I
So
get
that's
you.
kind of why it's less fulfilling. I feel like in my brain because of that.
I think that goes
But
back to like the comment I had about like craftsmanship from the beginning, right? To say
yeah,
like I'm putting a certain amount of attention to detail into steps one, two, three, and four, then five, six, seven, eight is not necessarily following the same pattern that I
yeah,
would have gone through.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes that makes my shit take longer to happen, but it needs to sound right. So
Got you.
you know,
Yeah, not. I feel you.
I mean, you've dealt with me long enough. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean?
I mean, we're trying to explain things outwardly. Of course, the understanding that I have of the
No, 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 no.
process.
I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just one of those things where you have like a like I mean when you imagine things, you're like, okay, this is the way this should sound, or this is the way this should look, and you kind of like visualize it in your head. So when it happens and it's not that way, you're just kind of like we got to get this right, you know.
Gotcha.
That's kind of how I feel about it. Yeah.
Okay, I think I've got like one more outward facing question, and it might be the kind of thing like nobody really has the answer to, and it's like one everyone's perspective and certain string of events for one person aren't going to equate to the same thing for another person. But like, can a person in 2026 or 2025, 20 whatever you're watching this, make your profession, like the way you pay your bills, be music? Because I know people like complain about streaming money or like I don't know.
Yes, they can, although it's very difficult to do it in a city like New York.
What's difficult about it?
It's just New York is just very expensive,
Mm,
and if you're getting in, so my thing is, if you're getting into music just to make money, it's not the place you should be doing. You should be
mm,
going to make just to make money. I mean, if you want to start a record label and you want to rip off a bunch of artists that are talented and whatever, then yeah, you might have some success. I don't know, but if
mm.
you want to run a legitimate situation where you actually take care of artists and you're taking care of yourself and everything, it's going to be very hard to fucking do. Living in this city, in most cities, I would even say, but especially in this city, but it is possible. I mean, I've done it. I've seen other people do it, but I would say is that I would never tell anybody to not have a job because I have been in situations where having a job at the time made me grateful that I didn't have to do music with people that I didn't want to do music with just to make money.
Okay, I could see that like to not have to make it your everything, right? Like I have to do this and I have to compromise
Yeah,
myself because of, of trying to
yeah,
pay a bill or trying to figure.
because you're gonna remember all those like $100, $200 beats that you sell that you're like, fuck, that was a good beat. Like, why did I sell that shit for nothing? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and then like you're like, yo, like, and then you get older and you don't make as many beats as you might have when you were, you know what I mean, or whatever, or something, you know what I mean? And like, and then you're like, like the effort that goes into it now is more because you have more, you have more responsibilities, more things, whatever, and less time and whatever. So you just view it differently. So you kind of forget, like, giving it all away in the beginning for like next to nothing is like not sustainable.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I get what you're saying. So if you were trying to make a list of some boxes that somebody should be trying to check to make it into a living, like is that something that could be quantified or that you could like spell out?
Yeah. I mean, I would say you obviously have to make sure you know about your publishing and all that stuff. You got to make sure that you have, you have your affairs in order with that stuff where you can are able to collect from the streaming or whatever. I would also make sure that you have a website in order that you can sell physical project products from your website so that people can like go directly to you. That's something that's big too. You kind of have to try to cultivate a direct to consumer like base because that's how you're going to make the most of your money. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, obviously touring and that stuff can help too because you can sell records and whatever on the road. But just being on the road costs money too. You know what I mean? That's not. It's not. It's not. You have to pay for hotels. You got to pay for travel. You got to pay for flights. All this other stuff. Food and there's a lot of factors. So having that extra income when you're on the road is definitely helpful. But yeah, it's definitely possible. But I would say if I would say don't jump into it with no type of um money to keep you afloat while you're starting to make it happen because you could spend all your money and like still not make them any money back for a little while. You know what I mean? Like that's very possible.
Got you. I think I kind of get what you're saying, where it's like if you have like a trade job, right, and you work 40 hours a week, you know you're going to get a certain amount of money. If you
Right.
spend 80 hours in the studio, double what you would have at that trade job, you don't know how much you're going to make.
Right.
Mm.
And that's the thing. People don't realize like when you like people say, "Oh, I hate my 9 to 5. I hate my 9 to 5." But when you leave that 9 to 5, you have to work around the clock. You know what I mean? Like you're like everything counts. So you might end up working more and getting less. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? Instead of just staying with something and like helping that coast you. Because remember, you can also utilize your day job to help fund your other stuff. And then once that starts recouping, then you're like, okay, now we're in a good situation.
Yeah, and
You know
back
what
to
I'm
what you're
saying?
saying before, like maybe you can make better decisions because you're in a place where you're
You're
like
not
comfortable
stressed.
enough. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. You're not completely stressed thinking about like 2 weeks ahead of you. You know what I mean?
got you. So if you thought about like 10 producers what percentage of them you think like this is all that they do?
Um, I don't know. That's a good question
Mm,
because I know some of them have been straight for years. So it's
mm,
like, you
mm.
know, um, but also I have to say that the older I get, the more I realize that people have like a lot of things that they do.
Mhm.
And I feel like there was a long time when having a job and doing music was like viewed a certain way. But I feel like at the end of the day, like people do a lot of things. Like if you're a millionaire, you don't have one thing you do.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? You have multiple streams of income. You have like real estate or you know, you have money in bonds or you're a lender or whatever. You know what I mean?
So,
Like
so
there's
when
like
when you go back in time and tell yourself what to do 20 years ago, you're like, bro, when they dropped this thing called Bitcoin, you get all the
yeah,
money.
yeah, yeah.
You buy six
Just
of
put
them
all
bitches.
your money in it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, before that, I would have bought every SP 1200. I would have bought every like, dude. I had a chance to buy an 808, and I didn't
Mm.
buy it. Like, all that shit's worth mad money right now too.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Um, but yes, like if I could go back, I'd buy fucking all the Bitcoin in the world.
All the
But
Bitcoin.
but yes, yes, yes.
just
But
more to
yeah,
answer the like, it's not one thing, right? So like,
yeah, I just feel like people get hung up on the like, oh, I have a job. You know what I mean? It's okay. Like,
mm,
you know what I mean? Like if you have a job, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit more reliable maybe. Like, that's why a lot of times people resort towards to you know, non-legal work because it's maybe it's a little faster, but that's a whole different
Yeah,
story.
until you spend a little time in a cage.
Yeah, yeah, that's no good. You
No.
don't want any of that.
Yeah. All right, cool. I think that touched on all my questions. I know I've taken up a decent amount of your time. Is there
I
anything
don't
you
even know. I have no idea what time it is anyway. I don't even
It's
know.
9:30. I think we've been doing this for about an hour. Like my goal in my head was like an hour, and I look over and I think we just crossed an hour. So like we're probably at
You
the
got to get
threat.
that retention
Yeah,
on YouTube.
yeah, we're probably at the threshold where people are like, all right, I gave these dudes an hour. I'm good.
They're like,